Good afternoon, Raleigh Park. This is Mr. Crow reporting to you from social distancing headquarters. I certainly hope this finds you all doing well. I hope this finds you healthy on the heels of spring break, whatever that was for you this year. I certainly know for our kids especially, but adults as well, that differentiating between the days and weeks is becoming all the more difficult these days as many of us find ourselves working from home, or at least keeping our distance from others, and a little bit, again, surreal. It's a cliched phrase by now, but we are living in surreal times. Nevertheless, again, I hope this finds you healthy and well. I've done my best to keep my distance physically from the building. I know that maybe for some, the direct communication to you has also seemed distant. Aside from another video that I sent right before spring break, the communication directly from me has been limited. This is by design in terms of what the district is desiring for the collective, if you will. I mean, with dealing, we have over 50 schools and 50 school principals. As you can imagine, getting 50 different messages or iterations of a message can be problematic. So what they've asked is that we take a little bit of a deferential role in communicating, knowing that that information is going to be coming directly from the district. So forgive me if you feel like I've been distant from a communication standpoint. It has nothing to do with where you are on my mind and how much I think about you guys each and every day. As we move forward, I can tell you that I had my first staff meeting today, and it was nice to actually get back in the saddle. It's not to say that we weren't doing work, and actually the last week and a half has been quite busy planning for what was unveiled to our teachers today, specifically what the district is calling Phase 2, and that is just a period of supplemental learning that the district has outlined. And so today we had our Zoom staff meeting in which we went over a little bit of that plan and what that looks like. To be clear, Phase 2 is supplementary learning. And what does supplementary learning mean? It simply means that we are using our district teachers, facilitating an experience with your children of district curriculum aligned to district targets. Now, is this gonna look like kids sitting in a virtual classroom for 4 hours a day? Absolutely not. On the contrary, there's been a conversation and a differentiation as it relates to what is synchronous learning versus what is asynchronous learning, and they are asking most of the learning be asynchronous, meaning not happening really real time. They're asking our teachers to push out content, whether it's using Seesaw, Google Classrooms, recording messages, what have you, and that keeping that synchronous learning, the learning that would take place, say, in a Zoom experience, keeping that to a minimum. Certainly we know that your students, your children want, and crave that desire to see their teacher. They have that desire to see each other, and it's not to say it's going to be absent, but really, as we're looking at supplementary learning, it is not intended to be a virtual school. It's not intended to have us sitting in a virtual classroom doing reading, writing, and arithmetic for several hours a day. And so what I would expect you to hear within the next few days, if they haven't already, is you hear your teachers reaching out to your students, checking in with your students. And to be honest, the first part of this Phase 2 really, truly is about checking in, making sure that your students are in a healthy place socially, emotionally, or otherwise. And then as we move forward, there will be learning. It is, again, as I said, tied to district curriculum and district learning targets, but the goal is not to introduce a bunch of new learning. On the contrary, this is an attempt to prevent learning loss. It's not to potentially perpetuate gaps that may already exist. It's just an opportunity for families to engage, or students to engage, and prevent that learning loss. It's not to say that new topics, new content can't be introduced, but it is in service of prior learning, reinforcing that prior learning. Now, on the dawn of phase 2, no sooner do we unveil it today to our teachers, do we get message from the state and from our superintendent that we are going to quickly move into phase 3 as well. So there will be a little transition period of phase 2, and then we will move into phase 3. What is phase 3? It remains to be seen. I know that there's been some foundation laid at the district level, and it, in some ways it's not distinguishable from a phase 2. But what I interpret phase 3 to mean is that our time away potentially could be a little longer than anticipated. It's not for me to predict with any sort of certainty about what the future holds between now and the end of the school year. I do think there's some writing on the wall, but again, it's not for me to make those kind of determinations at this point. All I can say is that we've been directed to transition quickly, have a little bit of a grace period from phase 2, but transition within the next couple weeks into phase 3. And again, more details coming. Beyond these phases and what they mean for your child and for our community, I'll simply say we're in uncharted waters. You don't need me to tell you that. I'll be working and engaging with our PTO board about what is known in terms of the needs in our community, but also making appeals and outreach to what is not known, knowing that our family circumstances are evolving just as much as the news is these days. I encourage you to reach out to our PTO board or me. And my email address, if you didn't already know it, is Brian, BRIAN _Curl, CURL, at beaverton.k12.or.us. And please do not hesitate to use that email address to reach out to me for any reason. Let me know how you're going, how you're doing, both successes and challenges. And if there are challenges or barriers, we want to know about them. While we do have some resources as from a district, we are limited in what we can do. But again, with the generosity of our PTO, for which you guys are all members, by the way, we can potentially do our best to make this a little less painful for all of us. As mentioned in my last video message, we all experience these moments of weakness and anxiety that is fueled by uncertainty. And building principals are not immune. Teachers are not immune. We all are facing an uncertain and uncharted future. That said, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. Brene Brown, perhaps you've heard of her, has gained a lot of traction over the last few years in terms of her work on the topics of courage and vulnerability and shame and empathy. And I've heard some words from her recently specific to this that I think are pertinent now and certainly what I know this Raleigh Park community to be, and I have not memorized it, so I'll read verbatim. This pandemic experience is a massive experiment in collective vulnerability. We can be our worst selves when we're afraid or our very best, bravest selves. In the context of fear and vulnerability, there is often very little in between because when we are uncertain and afraid, our default is self-protection. We don't have to be scary when we're scared. Let's choose awkward, brave, and kind, and let's choose each other. And knowing when we are weak and when we are vulnerable, I think it is so darn reassuring to know that we have such a wonderful community that has our collective backs. And while we may be feeling weak at moments, we know that if we only have 20% to give, there's a community standing right behind us for that other 80%. And conversely, we know that when we are feeling strong and we have that 80%, it is on us to make sure we are bringing our community along with us. What we do know, undoubtedly, what we do know in the face of uncertainty is that we have to keep moving one step at a time. And there's no better community that I can think of than the Raleigh Park community to be on this journey with. So until next time, I just want to thank you for your continued patience. There's going to be stumbles and missteps. As we move, there will be stumbles and missteps along the way. But certainly appreciate the patience, the trust, the faith that you all have in us to do what we're doing. And please don't be afraid to reach out. And you remember, if no one's told you they loved you today, you remember I do. Have a terrific day.